Comic-Con here in the convention center. We're broadcasting live from the Pulse College room. So Pulse is a games and animation college. And what they've done this year is sponsor a panel room for workshops where we've had voiceover actors, game designers, writers, animators, comic book artists and writers. Tom Poyer was just on before you guys came on as well, talking about high comics, which is great. And the main driving theme is that we're joined mainly by students and families, and the particular focus is about those looking to, the infamous how to break in. So what we've been doing is just getting folks to talk a little bit about their background, their careers, and then just a little bit about what advice has really stuck with them since they began. What's the one bit of cornerstone advice that stayed with them. So I suppose passing over to you folks, how did you find your careers, your starting career?
Well, first of all, I want to say that recently I started co-instructing with Brian Bendis at the Portland University to write comics. And this is a very subject that we talk about all the time, is how people break in, and it seems like almost every single person has a very unique way to get in. There's no like one way that somebody gets in, but it's an interesting conversation each semester. It's just incredibly empowering almost, but yeah. I'll have Mike start.
Yeah, there's so many. There is the good news for everybody out there is that there are so many ways to get into comics industry now versus, I say, pre-digital age, pre-social media and stuff. It was very difficult, and even if you wanted to self-publish, you were out on a limb on thousands of dollars immediately, not even knowing if anybody's going to order your book. Or there were so many pitfalls and such. That doesn't help you now as you're breaking in, but there is some good news that, yeah, there are many more doors now than before. And I think there's a lot of mental blocks for people over what makes you a professional or what makes you like a legit comic book creator, especially with the digital world. And somebody can put up a webcomic that will get 1 billion times more views than my Superman comic that's coming out now, World of Krypton, right? But somehow it'll be perceived that somehow I'm the legit artist, and the person with millions of people looking at their web comics isn't somehow, like it's a hobby. Don't fall for any of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The good news is if you want to be in comics, the basics of it is you just draw stuff and you put it out there now. Yeah. You're part of the conversation.
Yeah, you're part of the industry now. You're a comic creator. Congratulations. Job well done.
Now, as far as like
all done.
career and making a living and all that stuff is another conversation. But the good news is like that idea of how there's no permission slip needed to be a legitimate comic book artist or published, whether you're online or in paper, is the same thing. It's the same value, and don't let anybody talk you out of that. Mm-hmm. It's elitism.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's really inspiring to hear as well. I often hear it likened to breaking out of prison. Everyone, once one way is found, it's sealed, now someone finds another way. So there's many, and even now, I think that's something that's been a common theme is we have YouTube, we have Instagram, we have the ability to make websites now. So a lot of the middleman can be cut out, and the connection between content creator and audience now is never been closer. Just, I suppose, in terms of content and putting that content out there from a portfolio point of view, often I hear it mentioned that it's encouraged that, you post regularly online because editors and publishers, and even just generating a fan base, people pay attention, it gains traction. Would it be particular platforms you would encourage, aspiring comic book creators to maybe like focus on, do you find might be a good platform or a good place to host a portfolio?
I think whatever is the most comfortable for you, the one that you're familiar with is the right one, because I don't think there's a right answer for that kind of, it's just
It's not a singular spot.
right. There's so many ways to get into the comics industry, and one way is digitally. And so if that's encouraged and if that feels the right path for you, then that's the right path. Like I said, many people are discovered online, but other people are discovered by submitting stuff or meeting people at conventions and
giving an ash can of your book to
yeah,
somebody.
or you just happen to have a friend who knows an editor, and there's just so many different ways. So yeah, the more you put out, the better your chances are.
Yeah, I mean, your basics, like if you just need some answer, the basics I would say is have both a Twitter and Instagram account for your artwork. TikTok is much bigger, but as we said before, you do what you're comfortable with.
Right.
I'm old, so I open up the TikTok account and like it's just yelling at me, and every time I'm like, I use that, so I'm not, even though it's a bigger platform that I could probably get more of a readership from, I'm not comfortable with it. So I stick to like TikTok or to Instagram and Twitter. But there's also, speak to younger people out there, because they'll tell you about the other platforms, the discords that none of us even know exist on any level. And change always comes from newer generations coming into comics. So I'd say the very least Twitter and Instagram. And if you're promoting your work, ask yourself first when you start these things, do you want to speak really as yourself, as this art that you're putting out, or do you just want the work to speak for itself? I try to lean on, so I don't want to get in internet fights or anything. I'm already distracted by social media. So most of my social media is just the artwork, a few jokes every now and then, but mostly my idea is I'm presenting the work. Please buy my stuff. If you want to do the whole personality thing and everything else that goes into there, just be aware of that's a choice or not.
Absolutely. And I suppose something else that we've been discussing throughout the weekend here has been about motivation, the kind of fear of quote unquote failure, which really is just learning. It's like a stepping stone. But we all know, like the industry, I think we were joking. I had David Leck, a senior editor in Titan Comics, in at lunchtime, and we had a good laugh over the idea of going into comics to get rich, which, no one does. Yeah. So that's always the good joke we like to make. So
I need a cigar laugh.
That's rich.
So I suppose I suppose a lot of it is like equal parts passion and equal parts like motivation. Where do you guys find your motivation in your work? Like, what's that kind of like get up and go drive that you find that you still have from when you began to where you are now? What is it that's just that spark that you love about the medium?
I have a lot of emotional deficits that I'm trying to fill up with approval from other people. So, and I'm not lying, like, honestly, that's a big part of it. Like, there's, not to get too much information here, but like, I have self-esteem problems. I'm not good at a lot of things. I'm always distracted. So I just fail at a lot of places, but comics is a place where I can prove to myself and to others, like, I deserve to be on Earth, and I've got space here where I have something to say. So that is a big part of my motivation and I've had that since I was very, very young. Like, I was completely obsessively focused on comics. And even as an adult, I gotta tell you, there was a few years where like I went through ups and downs. You're talking about fears. We were talking about this in Brian Taki's class the other day. Any fear that you had, most of us have already faced. The worst situations have happened to both of us, and we're still here and we've gotten through them. They always suck at the time, and they feel like you can't get past. And some mountains are much harder to climb than others, but you gotta ask yourself on those fears, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well,
failure is not bad because you learn from them.
I've failed out of the industry, where I had a career. I was drawing Judge Dredd and some other books for DC and stuff, and then jobs just dried up, and I had to go get a part-time job as a security guard so that I could still kind of draw on the side. But I mean, talk about fear. I'd spent all this time and sacrifice to make it into comics, and then it all went away. Like, that's a huge failure thing. There's another point where I left comics to work in video games. The pay was so much better. There was security. They were doing crazy stuff like matching your the retirement 401k stuff, vacations, which were amazing. And I became a functional alcoholic because I'm working there all day, and then I still need to draw comics. I come home and then I'm drawing comics all night. So even though it was a better industry, more lucrative, and like when you talk about like how you want to make money as an artist, that's a guarantee is video games. Comics is not, but it's where we belong, and that's where I was happiest with. So like I had to be true to myself and stick it out in comics.
And I'm the same way. I think I was just born to be a storyteller. So when I discovered comics in my late 20s, I was like, oh, this is where I belong. This, and that moment on, I was going to school for advertising to become a art director, and I dropped out, and I'm like, I'm on my way there, because being an art director in advertising is very lucrative. So, but it wasn't my passion. It was comics. So yeah, that's my motivation. It's just in me. I can't think of anything else I'd rather do.
Yeah, I would never ever want to talk anybody out of pursuing comics. The only thing I would say is if you want to make it long term, you really truly have to love it. Like it can't be like, it can be a passing thing, but like it's so hard. You really have to truly love it to be here.
Yeah, and it's great. I was saying in previous panels today, with the success of the Marvel films and DC and such, I don't think it's increased, readers, converting film goers into readers. I think it's always going to be separate. If you read books, you don't necessarily read the books the films are based on, vice versa. But it has removed a lot of the taboo around comics, which is great, because let's put it this way, the fact that I'm calling you from Dublin is just going to show how fast spread the culture and the media is now, that audiences are so engaged to it. And I think technology has kind of helped with that also. But the fact, just out of curiosity, Taki, you were saying that you were in your late 20s when you discovered comics. What was the comic that, kind of drew you in? How did you discover them?
Well, I was dating a guy who was completely into comics, and I was casually reading while we were dating, but after we broke up, I'm like, oh, I kind of miss reading these just comics that's just laying around. So I went to a comic shop and like bought a bunch of stuff and whatever. But what really drew me in, I remember, was Daredevil Born Again storyline. And I remember I'm like, if comics can do that, then I want in. So yeah.
As far as choices go, yeah, that's pretty stellar.
Definitely.
That's awesome. I tell you what, I'm going to throw out the questions from the audience in just a moment. Just before we do, I suppose what we'll do is, before we go out, because I can see Henry jumping at the bit already. One moment, Henry. But before we do, is there just any particular projects you guys have out now at the moment you just want to talk about, give some spotlight or focus onto? More than happy to talk about that now.
Right now, there's two things going on. There's a World of Krypton from DC Comics, which it's a really smart retelling of Krypton, of that story. It's not what you would expect it to be. Robert Venditti is writing it. The guy did Hawkman. He's writing a bunch of other Superman stuff, and he's really good. We clicked really well. Nick Filardi, who I've worked with a long time on colors, coloring it. So I'm very proud of that. I'm also working on a book with James Tinian about Project Blue Book, the old UFO investigation stuff. And we're doing a very straightforward, almost journalistic style, and that's on his Substack site. And then we haven't announced yet, but Brian Bennett and I are getting ready to launch brand new stuff. So that's that for now.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Yeah.
And I have a graphic novel coming out. It's a autobiographical book. Yeah, I guess. It's called Sleeping While Standing, coming out from Avery Hill in July, I think.
Great.
And I also have, we have Murder Inc. coming out, the volume 4 through Dark Horse Comics sometime soon.
Yeah.
And I finished writing another graphic novel about Van Gogh that he's going to be drawing. That we don't have a release date yet, but that's also on the way.
Oh, great. And is Sleeping While Standing, would that be coming out through Diamond? Would that be available to order through there?
Yeah, you can order through Diamond, as well as like, you can get where you get books and stuff. So yeah, through Amazon or Barnes and Noble and stuff like that.
Perfect. Yeah, and I'm reading World of Krypton as well, and I just got to say that's terrifying me how much it looks like the world outside. Like it's an excellent telling, but it's scaring the holy heck out of me.
And Robert's such a good writer that somehow, while the messaging there is obvious, it doesn't feel heavy-handed. It feels unavoidable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm really impressed. Like, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll try out to some questions then. So go ahead. Yep.
So for Michael, I understand like the Ragnarok event was meant to move Thor from Marvel Universe during the whole Civil War event, but like what was his thought process during it? Like
actually, I tell you, hold on 2 seconds. Do you want to come up and ask? Actually, yeah. I might as well. Hold on, I won't too far. Go ahead. Hold on.
Okay.
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so Michael, I understand that like Ragnarok was meant to remove Thor from the Marvel Universe during the Civil War event, but like what was your thought process during it? Because was it just that like Stan Lee and Jack Kirby had been teasing this massive event that was going to result in the death of the gods, or was it just like, because I recall hearing somewhere that you had like a bit of a passion for Norse mythology, and you said, and did you think, oh, I could bring some of that into the mix too? And
yeah, absolutely. I was super excited because, this was during the Civil War event, and they were going to basically reboot Thor. So the interesting thing was this was going to be Ragnarok, except for real, basically. Like we could actually follow through on everything that happens, because the intent was for everybody to die and be reborn, right? So I knew that this was an opportunity to reach into my Norse mythology love. And I had done a book before that called Hammer of the Gods, which was sort of like this accidental tryout. And another good example for anybody looking to break in, by doing your own work, it will often get you
more work
and get you that attention. That was like my portfolio for Marvel. They saw this Norse mythology book that I did, and they were like, oh, for this last thing, let's take a chance on this guy, see if he does something interesting. If he doesn't, it doesn't matter. It's getting rebooted. If it does, it'll be relevant, So I got to reach into all my Norse mythology stuff, and I tried to tie in as much Norse mythology with mainstream Marvel continuity. So I didn't want it to alienate anybody who liked Thor but wasn't deep into the mythology stuff. And it was a lot of fun to be able to mix those two together, and a real dream. It was one of my most favorite writing experiences I've been blessed to have.
Awesome. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks. Just wanted to ask about that because that was where I was like introduced to you for the first time, and like that story actually got me interested in Thor as a character, because I was like, wow,
thanks so much.
Because I was like, wow, all these like important aspects of his like thing are like going away. Like his brother dies, and that's like the beginning of like the end, or a signal of the beginning of the end. I was like, wow,
Yeah, it was fun to actually get to follow through on that stuff. And if you like that, I check out, I did a mini series called Thor Blood Oath, which is very fun. It still had a lot of the same heaviness, I think, but we had a lot of fun and ran around to different mythologies, including Cuchulainn, pardon my pronunciation. So we got some Celtic stuff in there. We did some Egyptian stuff and a couple others. It was just a lot of fun to do like a whirlwind tour with them and the Warriors 3.
No worries. Because I also like after that I picked up, I think it was Bay Ray Bill.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I was interested in like the concept of like this alien thing that was kind of like Thor but wasn't really, had his powers and so forth, but like and I was like, oh, so what's this guy's connection to Thor? And I read it, not being familiar with the character. I'm like, oh, okay, this is who he is. And then I went back to the Walt Simonson where he was introduced, and I was like, yeah. So,
Uncle Walt is the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Awesome. I was like, what question do you want to come up and ask as well? Yeah, cool. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, sorry, I'm his sister. It's not really a question, it's just for Taki. I saw some snippets of Sleeping While Standing on mine, and I just wanted to say I'm so excited because just the humor you have, because we grew up in Thailand, so we grew up in Southeast Asia, and you know, coming back here to sort of cold countries, that one bit you had about the Minnesota cold, that's just like a universal experience for everyone, and it was like so well put into words, so I'm really excited to see that coming out. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I needed to hear that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that really impressed me with, well, there's a lot that the talking impressed me with this particular volume of stories. And part of it was she's writing these personal stories, but she made them relatable. And as this story was just saying about like this idea of moving from one place to another, the environment being like a shock to you was universal, where she could have just written this very kind of like me, whiny, this was hard kind of thing. Like instead she figured out like, how do you get the reader involved? How do I make you feel what I'm feeling? And yeah, just one of the many things about this book that I think is going to blow people away.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, cheers. Thanks very much for that. Okay, I can see the wrap-up guys giving me, giving me the signal. Before we let you go, we'll just conclude on the last point, I suppose, which is that the nugget of advice. What would be the advice you would impart then to, you know, the one key nugget that you think you always find yourself thinking back on? Or maybe it's that moment of hindsight, I wish I knew that then.
Oh.
Boy, there's a lot.
Well, yeah, well, thinking on it, there is a lot. So I would say there's going to be many obstacles in life and in career, but if you just keep going,
yeah,
you're gonna be okay. You're gonna survive all your fears that you have. You're gonna get over it. You're gonna learn from them, and nothing bad is going to happen to you by trying. You're gonna be okay.
Yeah, you know, I think that's overall the best. Like I said before, we faced our fears, like they've actually happened. Like Brian's had the same kind of things. You've had people like social media wise, like coming at you or after you. You've had careers that seemed like they were going to fall apart. We've had books that came out that nobody cared about, that we came in at a loss for us financially. There are times where, yeah, you're wondering, I should just go do something else. All those fears, those things will happen to you at some point, and you'll survive them. Don't ever let them derail you from what you really want to do here in comics, whether it's as a career or something that you're doing part-time. They're both as legit. Don't let anybody talk you out of it or push you off of your track of this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. Everything's going to be okay. No matter how bad things get, time will pass and it will be okay.
Yeah.
And keep writing and keep drawing.
That's awesome. I'm so happy this is like at the, you know, this is how we're closing it today. That's perfect. That's like, if I needed something to end on, that's like, yes, that's the one. That's the beat. We hit it.
Excellent.
No,
Great. That's awesome.
no, listen, thank you so much, both of you, for your time. I know I really appreciate it, and your willingness and patience of setting everything up was very much appreciated. We really do hope that in the near future we can arrange to have you over in person. As you can see, you'll have fans here ready to greet you. So I just want to thank you all. Thanks to everyone who came to the panel room today as well. We'll be having more talks all through tomorrow as well. And thanks once more, and hopefully get to talk to you again soon. And best luck with all your projects moving forward.
Excellent.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.